sweet. Not even flavor, I think.
He has to go to school. No, today is not school day. Ajay.
Wednesday is not school day.
Thursday, Friday is school day.
What kind of school is this?
He's making an apprenticeship here in the temple. So 2 days in a week he goes to school to learn theory and all that, and practical application is supposed to be in the office. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's really good. I did the same apprenticeship when I was 15 to 18, 3 years. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radhe, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotarashata Shishimat His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, Chapter 24, entitled Chanting the Song Sung by Lord Shiva, text 33. So this is now the prayer starts. Sabyasachi Prabhu was preparing us mentally and also holding back his realizations about what's going to come in the next verses. So today we hear the first shloka, which is actually the prayer of Lord Shiva. Shri Rudra Vacha Chittam Tatma Vitvarya Svastaye Svastirastu Me Bhavatara Dasaradhang Sarvasma Atmane Namaha Shri Rudra Vacha Chittang Tatma Vitvarya Svastaye Svastirastu Me Bhavatara Dasaradham Sarvasma Atmane Namaha.
Swastaye swasti astu me. Bhavatara dasaradham. Sarvasma atmane namaha. Sarvasma atmane namaha. Shri Rudra Vacha. Shri Rudra Vacha. Chitanta atma vitvarya. Chitanta atma vitvarya. Swastaye swastirastu me. Swastaye swastirastu me. Avatara dasaradham. Avatara dasaradham. Sarvasma atmane namaha. Sarvasma atmane namaha. Shri Rudra Vacha. Shri Rudra Vacha. Chitanta atma vitvarya. Swastaye swastirastu me. Bhavatara dasaradham. Sarvasma atmane namaha.
Matajis.
Rudra
Rudra Vacha
Chitanta atma vitvarya.
Svastaye svastir astu me.
Svastaye swastirastu me.
Shri Rudra Vacha Chitang Ta Atma Vidvarya Svastaye Svastirastu Me Bhavatara Dasaradam. Word for word translation. Shri Rudra Vacha. Lord Shiva began to speak. Chittam. All glories. Te. Unto you. Atmavit. Self-realized. Varya. The best. Svastaye, unto the auspicious. Svastihi, auspiciousness. Astu, let there be. Me, of me. Bhavata, by you. Aradhasa, by the all-perfect. Radham, worshipable. Sarvasmai, the Supreme Soul. Atmane, unto the Supreme Soul. Namaha, obeisances. So here is the prayer. Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the following prayer. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glories unto you. You are the most exalted of all self-realized souls. Since you are always auspicious for the self-realized, I wish that you be auspicious for me. You are worshipable by virtue of the all-perfect instructions you give. You are the Super-Soul. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you as the Supreme Living Being. Purport. It's a little bit a longer one. If you have your phone with you, you might want to read along so you don't lose track. Srila Prabhupada's purport. As soon as a devotee is inspired by the Lord to offer the Lord a prayer, the devotee immediately glorifies the Lord in the beginning by saying, "All glories unto you, my Lord." The Lord is glorified because He is considered to be the chief of all self-realized souls. As said in the Vedas, Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, Nityo Nityanang Chetanas Chetananam. The Supreme Being, the Personality of Godhead, is the chief living being amongst all living beings. There are different kinds of individual living beings. Some of them are in this material world, and some are in the spiritual world. Those who are in the spiritual world are known to be completely self-realized, because on the spiritual platform, the living entity is not forgetful of his service to the Lord. Therefore, in the spiritual world, all those who are in the devotional service of the Lord are eternally fixed, for they understand the position of the Supreme Being as well as their individual constitution. Thus, amongst self-realized souls, the Lord is known as the perfectly self-realized soul. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. When the individual soul is fixed in his knowledge of the Lord as the Supreme Being, he actually becomes established in an all-auspicious position. Lord Shiva prays herein that his auspicious position continue eternally by virtue of the Lord's mercy upon him. The Supreme Lord is all perfect, and the Lord instructs that one who worships him also becomes perfect, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. The Lord is situated as the Supersoul in everyone's heart. But He is so kind to His devotees that He gives them instructions by which they may continue to progress. When they receive instructions from the All-Perfect, there is no chance of their being misled. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. The Lord is always ready to give instructions to the pure devotee, so that the devotee can advance further and further in devotional service. Since the Lord gives instructions as Sarvatma, the Supersoul, Lord Shiva offers him respect with the words Sarvatma Atmane Namaha. The individual soul is called Atma, and the Lord is also called Atma as well as Paramatma. Being situated in everyone's heart, the Lord is known as the Supreme Atma. Therefore, all obeisances are offered unto Him. In this regard, one may refer to the prayers of Kunti in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.20. Tata paramahangsanam muninam amalatmanam bhakti yoga vidanartam katang pashyema histriyaha. The Lord is always ready to give instructions to the Paramahamsas, or the topmost devotees of the Lord, who are completely liberated from all contaminations of the material world. The Lord always gives instructions to such exalted devotees to inform them how they can remain fixed in devotional service. Similarly, it is stated in the Atmaram verse, Bhagavatam 1.7.10. Atmaramascha munayo nigranta apyurukrame kurvantya aitukim bhaktim ittam bhuta guno harihi. The word Atmaram refers to those who are not interested in the material world, but are simply engaged in spiritual realization. Such self-realized persons are generally considered in two categories, impersonal and personal. However, impersonalists are also become devotees when they are attracted by the personal transcendental qualities of the Lord. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva wanted to remain a fixed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva. As explained in the following verses, Lord Shiva never desires to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord like the impersonalists. Rather, he thinks that it would be good fortune for him to continue to be fixed in the understanding of the Lord as the Supreme Being. By this understanding, one realizes that all living entities, including Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and other demigods, are servants of the Supreme Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitang Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the following prayer. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glories unto you. You are the most exalted of all self-realized souls, since you are always auspicious for the self-realized. I wish that you be auspicious for me. You are worshipable by virtue of the all-perfect instructions you give. You are the Super Soul. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you as the Supreme Living Being. Hare Krishna. So it's a lengthy purport, and then the question always comes up, what do we speak about? And Prabhupada speaks about, he quotes 2 verses from Bhagavad Gita, 1:15-15, very famous verse, Mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. That's the line he quotes. And then he also quotes the famous verse 10:10 from the Chatur Shloki in Bhagavad Gita. Dadami buddhi yogam tang yena mam upayanti te. So somehow I wanted to focus on that part, especially because this seems to be sometimes a question mark for the practicing devotees. How much can we rely on the guidance of the Super Soul in the heart, and how much do we have to take guidance from outside, meaning from a guru? And I was thinking we can actually read a little bit from the Chatur Shloki itself, because Prabhupada's purports just clarifies a lot about maybe some doubts we have. Because Srila Prabhupada here, he explains the Lord is always ready to give instructions to the pure devotee, so that the devotee can advance further and further in devotional service. So if we take this sentence, then who is qualified to receive direct guidance from Krishna? The pure devotee. Then the question comes, what is a pure devotee? And if we go through Prabhupada's purports, there are so many statements about pure devotees, and even in his letters and in his conversations he speaks a lot about, of course, bhakti, and then sometimes he elaborates. And I just want to read this one letter, a part of the letter, where Prabhupada says, but I think it's a letter to Tushta Krishna from Ahmedabad in 1972. But I think you have got the mistaken idea in this connection. You speak of pure devotee, that he is Shakti Avesha Avatar, that we should obey him only. These things are the wrong idea. If anyone thinks like that a pure devotee should be obeyed and no one else, that means he's a nonsense. We advise everyone to address one another as Prabhu. Prabhu means master. So how the master should be disobeyed? And now Prabhupada says, others, they are also pure devotees. All of my disciples are pure devotees. Anyone sincerely serving the spiritual master is a pure devotee. So if we just take this statement, then we could say, okay, I'm here in the ISKCON Zurich temple, I'm engaged in my Guru Maharaj Prabhupada service, and I think I'm quite sincere, so I'm a pure devotee. And so I'm a pure devotee. And here it is said that the pure devotee always receives guidance from Paramatma, so I'm good. Everything that's happening within my intelligence is actually directly under the control of Paramatma. Maybe not completely, maybe not, because we know there is so much more to say about pure devotion, and the main text comes from Rupa Goswami, Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktir Uttama. Yeah? So the Srila Rupa Goswami, he defined what is pure devotional service, and actually we as followers of Rupa Goswami, we always take guidance from that verse to understand it properly. But I was just thinking, why not follow this one train of thought that I was having? If he's saying all of my disciples are pure devotee, then maybe the next question comes up: what is actually a disciple? Because I think I'm a disciple, so I'm a pure devotee. But it would be interesting to understand more what is a disciple. And there is also a lot of Prabhupada statements about this, and it's always the same. He's not giving very complicated explanations, but what he's saying, that comes from a conversation in Melbourne in 1974. Disciple means who accept discipline. If there is no discipline, where is disciple? And disciplic succession, we have used this word. Not that discipline is finished by one man, no. It will continue to go by succession. Then in another conversation, 1971 in Los Angeles, he says, to accept one as spiritual master means one has to abide by the orders of the spiritual master. The exact meaning, exact Sanskrit word is shishya. And the English word is also disciple. Disciple means who abides by the discipline given by the spiritual master. Similarly, shishya. Shishya means who abides by the governing order of the spiritual master. It's interesting when you look up the word discipline, it actually means literally, comes from Latin, and it means instruction, knowledge. So a disciple is one who follows the instructions. And Prabhupada, he was very expert in taking the exact words in order to bring out the meaning which is in the original Sanskrit word. And that is shishya. And probably many would just translate it as student, but no, he chose the word disciple to make this point that it's not enough to just go to the guru and listen a little bit and here and there give some donation and speak nice words of glorification of the guru, but one has to follow whatever the guru says. So that comes out from the word disciple. So now we understand better what means being a disciple. And Prabhupada gave many instructions, and some of them are very prominent, or they have a high priority for all his disciples. For example, chanting 16 rounds every day, following the 4 regulative principles, getting up for Mangalarti. You know, there are certain things he's actually not making a compromise. So now I'm sitting here on the Vyasasan. I've not been to Mangalarti today. It means I'm not following the Srila Prabhupada's instruction 100% purely. Okay, I go, but then sometimes I cannot follow due to conditioning. So it means I'm actually not, I'm a disciple, but I'm not a proper disciple. And Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he spoke about Satguru and Sat Shishya. So you can be a Shishya, a disciple, but if you're not able to follow constantly, then you're actually not eternal Sat Shishya. I would say from practical experience, we can understand that when we actually follow properly, then we receive a lot of guidance from within, isn't it? Our intelligence is very clear, and there is not so much doubting going on. But as soon as our discipline, our practice becomes a little bit slack, then the intelligence is not fixed, and then so many things come in. So this is actually a very scientific process, and a devotee has to be very careful to understand what does Prabhupada really mean here when he says a pure devotee who is always guided by the Super Soul. And one thing that helps us very much is the book which was given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Madhurya Kadambini, which actually describes the different stages in one's progress of bhakti. So, okay, it's all bhakti, but then according to the symptoms of the practice or the devotee who is practicing, we can understand how much is the bhakti developed. And by being introspective, by hearing about, for example, what does it mean to be on the platform of sadhu sangha, what does it mean to be on the platform of bhajana kriya, and then being introspective, we can understand where do we stand in our spiritual life. So introspection is very, very important to understand where am I. Okay, I want to go to Rome, but where do I stand now? And by understanding where I am now, then I can make my way to Rome. If I don't know where I am, then how can I find the way to go to my goal? It's impossible actually. So continuously I have to see where do I stand. And so if we are introspective and observe ourselves, how do we act, how do we think, how do we speak, then we will find out where do we stand in the bhakti process. And by finding out where do we stand, we can also understand how much are we guided by the Super Soul, and how much are we not guided by the Super Soul? How much are we guided by our own mind, which is under the control of the gunas? So I would just read from Bhagavad Gita, what Srila Prabhupada says here. In, of course, the Chatur Shloki, it begins with the verse Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai. And interesting, the whole purport of Srila Prabhupada ends, he's saying, Lord Shiva never desires to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord like the impersonalists. Rather, he thinks that it would be good fortune for him to continue to be fixed in the understanding of the Lord as the Supreme Being. By this understanding, one realizes that all living entities, including Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma and other demigods, are servants of the Supreme Lord. So it's the same concept we find in this first verse of the Chatur Shloki, that first of all we have to understand that Krishna is everything, is the source of everything, and that means we are all his servants. And by having a very solid understanding of this point, Sambandha Gyan, then devotional service becomes natural. It's the natural result of having that understanding. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha, that if I understand everything is Krishna and I'm a part of Krishna, so I'm meant to serve Krishna directly. So we might think, I've understood, I've read Prabhupada's books, I know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I've heard it again and again, but there is a difference between Gyan and Vigyan. And by observing our own thoughts, activities, we can actually see often that we are not fully situated in that understanding. We see duality. Then in the next verse, I will just read the translation. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So that was the description of the pure devotee, one who knows everything comes from Krishna, and basically everything is him. Then if he's fixed in that understanding, then he is a pure devotee, and he's constantly 24 hours. Prabhupada is not giving an inch room for speculation. He's saying in the purport, devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in glorifying the qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing him with other devotees. So 24 hours, that's always the standard for the pure devotee. And here also it's very healthy to be introspective and see how many hours do I meditate about Krishna, how many hours in the day do I want to serve Krishna, do I chant. And then the next verse is the verse he quoted, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tang yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So this builds up on the two other verses, that those who know Krishna is the everything comes from him, then I engage constantly in his service, and then Krishna will guide from within. And here, Prabhupada says something very interesting. In the last paragraph of this purport, he says, a person may have a bona fide spiritual master and may be attached to a spiritual organization, for example, ISKCON. But if he is still not intelligent enough to make progress, then Krishna from within gives him instructions so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty. So Prabhupada is saying that it's actually possible that even if you're not taking proper guidance from Krishna, from the Guru, and even though you are in a sangha of devotees and you're even not taking proper use of that, Krishna will guide you from within. But now he qualifies his statement. He's explaining whom does Krishna guide. Because based on that statement, one could say, why then does a devotee even leave? Why does somebody who starts to practice at another point step back and say, I don't want to practice anymore? Because according to that one understanding of the philosophy, could be said then, okay, if he's not properly following the instructions of the Guru, and also the devotees around him are not able to give him the nourishment, then Krishna will take care from within. But Prabhupada explains, the qualification is that a person always engage himself in Krishna consciousness and with love and devotion render all kinds of services. He should perform some sort of work for Krishna, and that work should be with love. If a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain to Him. So again, we can hear it's, if we want to have this guidance from Krishna from within, it doesn't just come automatically, but it only comes when that devotee is completely engaged in the service of the Lord, practically and in consciousness. And Prabhupada also qualifies the statement by saying, and that work should be with love. And just a few days ago, unfortunately, I couldn't find it anymore on YouTube. The devotee took it down, the video. I was listening one video of one devotee who was speaking about Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. This is a small book by Vishwanath Chakravarti where Bindu means a drop of the Sindhu of Bhakti Rasa Amrita. Means a drop of the ocean, nectar of devotion. Ocean of devotion. And there, this Prabhu was giving the class, he was explaining that like we have these different stages, no, from Shraddha to Prema, and then also we can divide them into 3 types of bhakti: sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. He was making the point that actually there is, like in this verse we heard, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam parvartate iti matva bhajanti man Buddha bhava samanvita. There's 2 things, intelligence, and then there is bhava, means feeling. And this devotee was explaining how it is described that initially the intelligence is more important, and at one point it switches. The emotion will become more important. Meaning the progress in bhakti in the initial stage is being done by the help of intelligence, and later on it's being done by the help of bhava, emotion. And that's why there is the bhava bhakti in between the prema and sadhana bhakti, because at that point not much effort has to be done on the intellectual platform, but it is very natural, it flows spontaneously. And there is an example in Srimad Bhagavatam of Bharat Maharaj, who, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam, he was very advanced, that when he retired and went to worship the Lord, he had some serious emotions for the Lord. He was crying and different kinds of symptoms came. And then he fell down because he got attached to a deer, and then due to this attachment he took birth in the form of a deer. And that is described that he was on, I remember His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, once they had a big gathering of Prabhupada disciples in D-Land, and Tattvavid Prabhu, he asked him this question, until when can a devotee fall down? And then he was quoting that Bharat, I was speaking about Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj was on the platform of Bhava Bhakti, which is just before Prema Bhakti. But still there is a chance to fall down. But then we can see what happened after. He took birth as a deer, but he never forgot about his previous devotional service, and he had full attraction to the Lord. And even though in a deer body, he would engage actually in Krishna consciousness. And then when he took birth as Chada Bharat, he also from birth he knew what's the goal of life. So we can see that he didn't need much external support to strengthen his buddhi, but the bhava, the the feelings which were already developed within him, they naturally pulled him towards the Lord. So there is not much mention of in Jada Bharat's life about him taking serious guidance from a guru and all that, but he basically took birth, he realized what's happening, and he fixed his mind, and he made up a plan how to achieve the goal, and by just absorbing in devotional service, he then attained the goal. So I wanted to focus on this point. Prabhupada speaks about these verses in Bhagavad Gita, how the Lord guides from within as the super soul in order for the devotee to make progress. However, it's very important to understand who is qualified to receive the direct guidance from within, from the Lord, and by being introspective and by hearing, for example, from Madhurya Kadambini about the different stages of devotional service, or there's also the book Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, where it describes very nicely different stages by Shivaram Maharaj. Then we can see where we are, and we can soberly take guidance from the right source. And if it is not from the super soul yet, then we know we have 3 sources: Sadhu, Guru, Shastra. So we have to accept the Guru, and we have to study the scriptures, and we have to associate with devotees who also can give us the proper understanding from time to time. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes. Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much, Damodar Prabhu, for this excellent lecture. My question is that you mentioned the importance of being introspective and always watch our thoughts and actions and words to see where we are standing in the stages of bhakti, to see how much bhakti is developed. And my question is that how can we, when we assess ourselves, how can we make sure that this assessment is authentic and honest and not coming from the false ego that wants to inquire falsely some, for example, advanced stage of bhakti. So how can we make sure that we are true and authentic with ourselves when we are assessing? I hope I was clear in my question.
Yes, thank you. That's a very good question. I think very relevant, because I'm saying introspection, and then what if we don't have the qualification to be truly introspective? I think it's something that can be developed to a certain degree, also depending on the level of consciousness we have. And here actually it's a really nice point. I think it's good to take guidance also from others and ask for feedback. Others can see us better than we can see ourselves. So I wouldn't depend solely on my own introspection, but try to validate it with others' feedback and opinion.
Thank you.
But eventually we have to come to the point of honest introspection. I think that is also given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He gives the Sharanagati, and then the first part is humility. And what he's actually doing, he's showing us how to be introspective. Like, my life is full of sin, I have passed all my days just absorbed in sense gratification and all that. And he really means that. And that's something we hear it, we have to follow the acharyas, the mahajans. So we also should lament about ourselves, and because actually if we are introspective, if we find the time, then usually what we find is very humbling. And that's good. Like, if I look inside and I see, oh, there's so much anartha, desires, then, but of course, if I start to be introspective and glorify myself, wow, I did this so good, and see how qualified, and my heart is full of bhakti, it's so soft and overflowing with love, then we can definitely be sure we have to be careful. So we can take others, the pure devotees' prayers, because prayers are often also very introspective and as a parameter.
Where do we find these prayers that you just mentioned? The acharya that was praying and...
I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Maybe Savisachi Prabhu, if you want to also add something to that point of how we can be truly introspective.
Yes, no.
How do you, can I ask you, how do you practicing for 20 years or so, a long time, how do you practice introspection? Maybe you can give some advice.
Yeah, it's just Krishna consciousness is it's an honest thing. Like Krishna sees everything. So personally, it's just to always put it before Krishna. What's my desire? Trying to express the most sincere desires that are there, and ask Him to help me towards them. And He knows the rascal that I am, so just don't let me be that rascal. And trusting that Krishna is there for my ultimate welfare. And as soon as there's some thought of being established or achieved some sort of good quality, then we just compared to the saints, and then you find that no. Yeah, so, and the healthy comparison is just to think about the spiritual master, and then it's very clear how far one is in any department. Yeah.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Have a nice day. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Mahadev.